I'm back. Okay. So hopefully this testing. Hopefully it's working. If you pop on, let me know. But I just got done and I only have a couple minutes to share this, but I wanted to come on here and share this with you guys because I think it's so freaking powerful. I just got done reading a study and some research by Dr. I think her name's Abuti. She's from Harvard. She studies and she's a doctor at Harvard. She studies stress and what it does to your body. And oftentimes when I'm on my calls with, women wanting to start high ticket or my team coaching, and they have things going on like procrastination, imposter syndrome, avoidance, like the doom scroll and things like that. I talk about this a lot. And in this study that I was reading, the science behind it, who here, drop a one in the comments if you are a science freaking nerd. I am a science nerd. I love, I was going to school for psychology. I got my degree, BS in psychology and pre-med. I was actually going to go to med school for neuropsychiatry. That's what I wanted to do. Now I help women and men, some men, but now I help women make more than a neuropsychiatrist in a freaking month that they would make in a year. But I found this study absolutely fascinating, right? And, my past, there's been some narcissistic manipulation and things in my past. And I find it so fascinating because the sections of your brain after you go through manipulation or narcissistic manipulation, or you go through life just on autopilot, responding to everything that happens to you in your life, what happens over time, and about 70% of us walking around are chronically stressed, which when I explain this, you're gonna be like, holy crap, holy shit, how do I change this? I don't want to be one of those 70%. But one of the things is the procrastination. It's the doom scrolling, it's the comparaitis, it's the not feeling good enough. And that's not coming from a place of low self-esteem or lack of confidence. It's actually stemming from physiologically, neurochemically, the stress hormone, cortisol. And cortisol, so let me back up, and this is what I talk about all the time, is having nervous system regulation with your money, with your life, with your friendships, with anything that's going on in your life. If your nervous system isn't regulated, your external situation that you're in, right? Whether that be traffic that you're going through and you're like, oh my God, I'm so annoyed. The traffic's going so slow. I got to get to work. I got to do this. Or you're in the grocery store and someone's coughing, you're on a plane and someone's being loud and a baby's crying and you're over here like, oh my God, I just want it to stop. That's your nervous system. That's your stress hormone. That's your cortisol flowing through your body. And what happens after doing this so many times, same thing with narcissistic abuse, and it takes time to heal from that. Anyone on here that's ever been through that knows that, when you leave that situation, it doesn't just go away. Like, you have to heal from it. You have to use tools and breath work, and neuroplasticity is a beautiful thing because you can rewire those neural connections. That manipulation actually, it changed your brain chemistry. So same thing when you're going through life and you're just a victim to everything that's going on, right? Narcissistic abuse, constant stress, constant worry about money, finances, anything like that, your relationship, your friendships. What's going to happen over time is your hippocampus is actually going to physically shrink in your brain. Physically shrink in your brain. It's a part of, PTSD going through narcissistic abuse. That's why after the manipulation, I'm not talking about just romantic relationships, although that is the most common kind, but you can have friendships, you can have mentorships, you can have bosses, you can have coworkers, like you can have different types of, I'm not sitting here calling people narcissists because that would require a DSM-5 like diagnosis by a physician or a psychologist, psychiatrist, something like that. So I'm not out here trying to call people narcissists. I feel like we all have some type of like trait Some worse than others. Okay, some worse than others. But when you go through that, your hippocampus actually shrinks. And your hippocampus is, I made a note of the hippocampus because I'm not super adverse in the hippocampus. I am in the amygdala, I am in the prefrontal cortex. I talk about those all the time. I was actually talking about those yesterday with my friends. But the hippocampus is responsible for memory, learning, and context. Memory, learning, and context. And it's highly sensitive to cortisol, which obviously is your stress hormone. So when you're stressed, when that hormone is being released in your brain, your hippocampus is actually going to shrink. So your ability to remember things, your memory, your ability to learn new things, you're going to get more frustrated when you're learning something new because your memory, you're not going to be able to recall and remember it like you normally would because of this manipulation. And then any context, right? So the context that you had for that manipulation, that abuse is what I'm going to call it, or just in life in general, right, is going to be skewed. You're going to have certain cognitive biases that are going to scan the universe and say, I want to protect you. I want to protect you. Let's not go through this again, which is where your amygdala comes in. I only have like 5 minutes, so I should have did this afterwards because it's so fascinating. But if you guys want to know more, I can do another live. But it's so fascinating because your amygdala is the oldest part of your brain. So again, I went to school for like neuroscience. I'm a freaking nerd. But your amygdala is this little like almond shaped part of your brain. It's actually the oldest part of the human brain. It can be traced back like millions and millions and millions. Right? It's the oldest, most primal part of our brain. Our brain has new centers to it as humans have evolved, but the amygdala is the oldest part of our brain, and that's responsible for fight or flight. And it's okay, we need it. Shout out nerds. I love you today. But it's responsible for your fight or flight. And it's so valuable. We could never live without it. We would just, we wouldn't be here. But it's responsible for your fight or flight, which is great in short doses. That's what we need it for. Our most primal section of our brain. It's actually located in the middle, in between your ears. It's a little almond guy. And when he's activated, you go into survival mode. That's what its purpose is for. Survival mode. Back in caveman days, back in, primal days when we had to make quick decisions, like a lion jumps out of the bush, like we gotta go. We gotta go. You don't need logic or reasoning. You don't need anything like that. You need your amygdala to be firing so that you can get the hell out of there and go save yourself and get away from the lions. Okay? That's the same thing that's happening. There's no lions in today's world, but that's what there are. But they're not chasing you down like the I-80, okay? But that's what's happening. And when your amygdala, when you go through stress, when you go through, you're going through your day-to-day life and you are constantly worried about what other people are saying or doing, and you're internalizing that, that's actually flipping on your amygdala. It's flooding your body with cortisol. And when your body is flooded with cortisol, everything else shuts down, especially your prefrontal cortex, which isn't fully developed until your mid-20s. Okay, that's why when you're younger, this is what we were talking about yesterday with my girls, my friends. And, they were saying like as they got older, they're just so much more aware and they don't do risky things and stuff like that. And I'm just on this ski lift and I'm like, well, that's because your prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop until your mid to late 20s. And prior to that, your prefrontal cortex is responsible for planning, logic, things like that, to where when you're younger and that's not fully developed, you're like, I can jump off this roof. I won't get hurt. Like, you don't have the forethought, and that's not developed in your brain yet to see that might not be a good idea. So I'm sure all of you know what that's like. When you were younger, you were more risky, you were more daring, right? As you get older, that fully develops. And so you stop being so risky. So what happens after narcissistic abuse or prolonged chronic stress is that your hippocampus shrinks. Your amygdala actually gets turned off. Or not your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex actually gets turned off, and your amygdala is turned on. It shuts your prefrontal cortex down. So you lose the ability to reason logically, to plan. This is why you get triggered really easy if something so tiny that normally wouldn't bother you bothers you and you just go off. This is why. It's because your amygdala is turned on and your prefrontal cortex is turned off. So I have like 30 seconds, and I can definitely do like a longer training on this because it's so fascinating. But how do we counteract that? What is the easiest, simplest, quickest way to counteract your amygdala and turn it off? Turn your prefrontal cortex back on. Do you want to know? It's breath work, actually. When you intentionally breathe, your focus is on your breath. It's the only thing it can be focused on, because typically it just happens naturally. You don't even think about it. Just like blinking, just like breathing, your heart's beating. You're not actively doing these things. But when you do pay attention and you are conscious about a subconscious thing that your body does, that instantly sends a signal to your vagus nerve, which calms you down. So even just a couple rounds of that, your vagus nerve is going to instantly be triggered to calm you down. So if you've went through any type of manipulation, narcissistic abuse, whether that's friendships, mentorships, bosses, coworkers, anything like that, and you know, maybe you're one of these 70% of people that's walking around the planet chronically stressed, your immune system's going to be suppressed, your memory is going to be impaired, your logic is going to be impaired, your reasoning is going to be impaired. All of that, if you feel like that's you, I'm going to encourage you to take some breaths to calm your sympathetic nervous system down. And if our nervous system is not regulated, girl, your money will not flow. Your money will not flow, which that is a whole nother training that I would love to do with you guys and talk to you about that and nervous system regulation and how to increase your cash flow through nervous system regulation. But this is the core of all of that, is understanding what happens when you're stressed. And it's not even, you know, it's not like this thing happened to me and now I'm stressed. It's 70% of the human population is chronically stressed. Wow. And it's amazing what our bodies can do if we give them the ability to do it. So if y'all have an Apple Watch, there's a reason it's got a breathing exercise on there. I encourage you, only you will know if you do this. I encourage you to do a little breath work. Get your little Apple Watch. If you don't have an Apple Watch, go to YouTube, do a breathing exercise for a couple minutes today, and tell me how you feel afterwards. Last week I was so, and then I got to go, but last week I was so unregulated with my nervous system because there was so much going on, and for the past like 3 weeks of my personal life, it's just been a fucking mess. And I did some intentional tapping with my trauma coach. I've been doing breath work to, like, you know, calm my nervous system down, and the past 4 days have been great. But it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. If you've never done this, if you're not used to it, it's going to be different. So hopefully he's still on. But I gotta go, guys. I will be back, but wanted to share that with you guys. I think it's just so fascinating that we as humans have the ability to control all of that within us, even though our subconscious is like, we gotta run away from the lions. So, love y'all. I'll see you later.